Woman found an old photo of herself in the attic of the house she was about to buy, and what she discovered. Jennifer Wilson could barely control the trembling in her hands as she held the yellowed photograph she had just found among the debris of the dusty attic. 30 years old with a nursing degree, she always considered herself a rational person, but nothing could have prepared her for this moment. The photo showed herself at 5 years old, wearing a little blue dress she vaguely remembered, lovingly hugging an elderly woman with grey hair she had never seen before. The most disturbing part was the background of the image, the same house she was in now, the same wooden porch, the same windows with peeling white frames. How is this possible? She whispered to herself, flipping the photo over and finding a date written in pencil. March 15th, 1999, Jennifer and Grandma Martha. The real estate agent Deborah, who had come up to check some structural issues, turned completely pale when she saw the photograph in Jennifer's hands. Her eyes widened, as if she had seen a ghost. "Where did you find this?" Deborah asked in a shaky voice, trying to mask her nervousness. "It was here, in the middle of this mess," Jennifer replied, pointing to a pile of dusty boxes. "Deborah, I need to understand what this photo means. Why do I seem to know this house when I've never been here before?" The agent quickly stepped closer, reaching out as if she wanted to snatch the photograph away. "It must be a mistake, maybe a child who looks like you. These old houses always have things left behind by previous owners. Let's go downstairs. There's nothing interesting up here." But Jennifer stepped back, shielding the photo against her chest. Something about Deborah's behavior wasn't right. The woman seemed genuinely disturbed, as if she knew exactly what the image meant. "It's not a mistake," Jennifer said firmly. "I remember this dress. My mother always said it was my favorite as a child. And look here on the back. My name is written." Deborah took a deep breath, nervously glancing at the stairs leading downstairs. "Jennifer, please, forget about this photo. Some things from the past are better left where they are. This house has a complicated history, and you don't want to get involved." The response only heightened Jennifer's curiosity. She had known Deborah for only 2 weeks, ever since she started looking for a house in this quiet neighborhood of Woodbridge, but she had never seen the agent so shaken. "What complicated history?" Jennifer pressed. "Deborah, if there's something I should know about this property, you have an obligation to tell me." I have to go now," Deborah stammered, already hurrying down the stairs. "Think carefully before deciding to buy. There are better houses in the area." Jennifer listened to Deborah's hurried footsteps descending the wooden stairs, followed by the sound of the front door slamming shut. She rushed to the attic window and saw the agent practically running to her car without even looking back. "How strange," she murmured, turning her attention back to the photo. She decided to keep searching the attic. If a photo of herself had appeared here, maybe there were other clues about her connection to this house. She rummaged through the dusty boxes, mostly finding old items of little value. Chipped dishes, yellowed clothes, books with pages stuck together from humidity. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. That's when she found a second box, smaller and better preserved, hidden behind a pile of old lumber. Inside it, she discovered something that made her heart race. An entire photo album dedicated to a child who was unmistakably herself. Page after page of her childhood in that house. Jennifer playing in the garden, sleeping in a room she recognized as being on the second floor, making sand cakes in the backyard. In every photo, the same elderly woman appeared, caring for her with obvious maternal affection. "This doesn't make sense," she said aloud, feeling her legs grow weak. Her earliest memories were of her life in Ridgewood, with Susan Parker, the woman she had always known as her adoptive mother. Susan had always told her she had adopted her from an orphanage in Springfield when she was 6, after years of unsuccessful attempts to conceive. But the photos clearly showed she had lived in that house before the age of 6, and seemed happy and well cared for. Who was that elderly woman? Why had Susan never mentioned any of this? With trembling hands, Jennifer grabbed her phone and called Susan. "Mom, I need to ask you something important about my adoption." Jennifer, sweetheart, are you okay? You sound strange, Susan replied on the other end. I'm at a house in Woodbridge that I'm thinking of buying, and I found some childhood photos of me here. Photos I don't remember you taking. There was a long silence on the other end. When Susan spoke again, her voice sounded tense. What kind of photos? Photos of me at 4, 5 years old, playing in this house, with an elderly woman I don't recognize. Mom, are you sure you adopted me directly from the orphanage? Jennifer, where did you say you are? In Woodbridge, looking at a house on Magnolia Avenue, number 247. Another silence. This time even longer. Honey, get out of there now. Don't buy that house. Come home. We need to talk in person. Mom, you're scaring me. What's wrong with this house? Just leave, please. I'll explain everything when you get here. Susan hung up, leaving Jennifer even more confused and worried. Something was definitely not right. Her adoptive mother had never reacted so strangely to anything about the past. She decided she wouldn't leave without more answers. Carrying the photo album, she climbed down from the attic and decided to knock on the neighbor's door. Maybe someone in the neighborhood knew something about the history of that property. The house next door was well kept, with a flower garden out front. A white-haired woman, around 70, was watering the plants when Jennifer approached. Excuse me, ma'am. My name is Jennifer. I'm interested in buying the house next door and wanted to know a little about the neighborhood's history. The elderly woman stopped watering and looked closely at Jennifer. Her eyebrows rose in surprise, almost disbelief. Good heavens, the woman whispered, dropping the hose. You're Jennifer, little Jennifer. You know me? Know you? Dear, I watched you grow up here until you were 5. I'm Dorothy. I've always lived in this house. You used to play in my garden almost every day. Martha always said you were the light of her life. Jennifer's heart began to beat faster. Finally, someone who could explain the mystery. Who was Martha? She owned the house where you lived, a wonderful woman who fostered children for social services, but you disappeared overnight over 20 years ago. Martha was heartbroken after they took you away. Took me away? What do you mean, took me away? Dorothy glanced around nervously, as if afraid of being overheard. Come inside, dear. This conversation is better had indoors. The inside of Dorothy's house was cozy, filled with family photos and well-tended plants. She made chamomile tea as Jennifer showed her the photos she had found. Yes, these are definitely you and Mrs. Martha, confirmed Dorothy, her eyes brimming with tears. You two were inseparable. Martha loved you as if you were her own granddaughter. But what happened? Why did I leave here? Dorothy took a deep breath before answering. Your birth mother was very young when you were born, only 17. She couldn't raise you, so she left you in the care of Mrs. Martha, who was like a foster mother. The idea was that it would be temporary, until she could get back on her feet. And my birth mother, what happened to her? A distant relative showed up, Susan something, who said she could give you a better life in another city. She convinced everyone it was the best solution. Mrs. Martha didn't want to let you go, but she had no legal rights. It was a terrible court battle. Jennifer felt as if the ground had vanished beneath her feet. Susan hadn't just lied about the orphanage. She had literally torn a child from the arms of someone who deeply loved her. Did my adoptive mother know Martha? Yes, she did. They met a few times during the process. Susan promised you'd have a better education, opportunities a small town like this couldn't offer. In the end, she was right about that. You became a nurse, built a stable life. But what about Martha? What happened to her? Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. She never recovered from your leaving. She kept fostering other children for a few years, but her heart was broken. She passed in 2015 at 83. She always hoped you'd come back one day. Jennifer couldn't hold back her tears. A woman had given her unconditional love in her earliest years, and she hadn't even known she existed. Did she talk about me before she passed? Every day. She always said her heart's granddaughter would come home someday. She left the house untouched, with your room exactly as it was when you left. My room? The blue room on the 2nd floor. She never let anyone use it. Said it was your place and she'd be waiting when you returned. Jennifer needed to see that room. She excused herself from Dorothy and went back to the house next door. The keys were still where Deborah had left them after rushing out. She went straight upstairs and opened the door to the room Dorothy had mentioned. What she saw left her speechless. It was like a time capsule, a child's room preserved for decades, with a small bed, shelves full of children's books, toys carefully arranged, and colorful drawings taped to the walls. On the dresser, a framed photo of her at 5 years old, smiling in the backyard. "Martha," she whispered, gently touching the objects as if they were sacred relics. She found a drawer full of drawings she recognized as her own, childish scribbles signed Jennifer in wobbly letters. There were also handwritten notes in an adult's script, all addressed to her. "My dear Jennifer, today marks 2 years since you left. I watered your flowers in the garden and they're beautiful. I know you're happy and well, but my heart misses you every day. Jennifer, my heart's granddaughter, today you would have turned 8. I made a chocolate cake, your favorite, and left a slice on your plate. I always do." Dozens of letters, one for every missed birthday, every Christmas without her, every milestone Martha had imagined they might have shared. Jennifer wept as she hadn't in years. A woman had loved her unconditionally and she'd never known. Susan had robbed them both of a relationship that could have continued, even with the adoption. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. Her phone rang. It was Susan. "Jennifer, are you still at that house?" "Yes, Mom. And I just discovered some very disturbing things. Sweetheart, I know you're confused, but you need to understand that everything I did was for your well-being. You knew Martha personally, didn't you? It wasn't a normal orphanage adoption." Silence on the other end of the line. "Susan, answer me. Did you know the woman who raised me before you adopted me?" "Yes," Susan admitted quietly. "I knew Martha. But Jennifer, you need to understand the context. You were in a very precarious situation with no guarantees for the future." "Precarious? That woman loved me. She kept my room untouched for 20 years, waiting for me to come back. And don't I love you? Didn't I give you an education, opportunities, a stable life? Jennifer, you became a respected professional with a life Martha could never have provided. That didn't give you the right to erase her from my life. You could have stayed in touch, let me know she existed. It wasn't that simple. There were complicated legal matters, interests of several people involved." "What interests? What people?" Another long silence. "Jennifer, come home. Some conversations are too difficult to have over the phone. I'm not leaving until I understand everything. Tomorrow I'm going to the records office to check the property deeds for this house. I'll talk to more neighbors. I'll uncover the whole truth, with or without your help." "Don't do this, sweetheart. You might discover things that will hurt you even more." "I'm already hurt, Susan. I found out an important part of my life was hidden from me. It can't get worse than that." Susan hung up without saying goodbye, leaving Jennifer even more determined to uncover the whole story. The next morning early, Jennifer went to the property registry office in Woodbridge. The clerk, a middle-aged man named Richard, was very helpful when she explained she was interested in the property's history. "The house at 247 Magnolia Avenue. Of course I can pull the records. This property has an interesting history." As Richard searched the files, Jennifer's heart raced. Every minute of waiting felt like an eternity. "Here it is," Richard said, returning with a thick folder. The house belonged to Martha Robinson Williams from 1978 until 2015. After her passing, the property was transferred to... Interesting. To whom? According to the will, to a granddaughter named Jennifer Wilson. But there's a note here stating the beneficiary couldn't be located at the time of probate. The house remained under court administration until it was put up for sale last year. Jennifer's legs felt weak. Martha had left the house to her in the will. She had been the rightful owner of that house for nearly 10 years and never knew. How is it possible the beneficiary wasn't located? Is my full name on the document? Richard examined the papers more closely. Jennifer Wilson, born September 15, 1994 in Woodbridge, daughter of Amanda Wilson. The notification address listed here is Ridgewood, but it says the letters were returned as recipient not found. That address in Ridgewood, what is it? Richard showed her the document. It was the address of the house where Jennifer had grown up with Susan. This means the notifications were sent to my home, but someone made sure I never got them, Jennifer murmured, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. Is there anything else in the records I should know? Richard flipped through the documents. There are some notes about the adoption process. It seems there were legal disputes. Let me see. Here, there's a note that the temporary guardian, Martha Williams, contested the adoption, claiming emotional ties to the child and a desire for permanent custody. And what happened with that appeal? It was denied. It says here that the close relative, Susan Parker, demonstrated better financial and educational conditions to raise the child. The case was finalized in 2000. Jennifer left the courthouse with the feeling that her entire life had been a carefully constructed lie. Susan hadn't just hidden her origins, she had actively sabotaged Martha's efforts to stay in touch and had intercepted the will notifications. She decided to go back to the house and talk to Dorothy again. Maybe the neighbor knew more details about the court case. Dorothy welcomed her with a hot cup of tea and a worried expression. "Sweetheart, did you spend the whole night in that house? You look like you haven't slept." "I couldn't sleep. I found out Martha left me the house in her will, but Susan made sure I never knew." "That doesn't surprise me," Dorothy said with a sigh. "Mrs. Martha always said she was sure you'd come home one day. She prepared everything for your return." "Dorothy, do you know anything about my birth mother, Amanda Wilson?" Dorothy's expression shifted, growing more cautious. "Yes, I do. Amanda still lives in town to this day." Jennifer nearly dropped her teacup. "She still lives in Woodbridge all these years?" "Yes, she works at the bakery downtown, the Town Bakery. She's a simple woman, never married. She always asked about you whenever we ran into each other." "Did she know I was living in Ridgewood?" "Oh, yes. Susan made sure she knew you were well taken care of, but she also made it clear Amanda wasn't to try and contact you." "How did she make that clear?" Dorothy hesitated before answering. "She threatened to take the case back to court if Amanda tried to reach out, said it could harm your emotional development. Amanda, poor thing, was afraid of causing trouble for you." Jennifer felt a whirlwind of emotions she couldn't fully process. Anger at Susan for manipulating everything, grief that Martha had passed without seeing her again, and a nervous curiosity about meeting Amanda. "Dorothy, do you think Amanda would want to meet me?" "Sweetheart, she never stopped talking about you. Every year on your birthday, she'd come to the neighborhood church to light a candle. I'm sure she'd be overjoyed to see you." "Can you tell me exactly where that bakery is?" "Of course, it's at 89 Main Street. But Jennifer, are you sure you're ready for this? It's a lot to take in all at once." Jennifer wasn't sure of anything, but she knew she needed answers. She'd spent 30 years not knowing she had a birth mother living nearby, an adoptive grandmother who had loved her unconditionally, and a house that was legally hers. "I have to go," she said, standing up determinedly. The Town Bakery was a small, cozy place, the air rich with the smell of fresh bread. When Jennifer walked in, she saw a woman around 45 arranging pastries in the display case. She had straight brown hair, honey-colored eyes, and a face that, despite the years, still held a youthful sweetness. When the woman looked up at Jennifer, her expression changed completely. The bread in her hands fell to the floor. "Oh my God," she whispered, pressing a hand to her chest. "Jennifer, are you Amanda?" "It's me, my girl. It's me." They stood frozen, staring at each other for seconds that felt like an eternity. Jennifer saw her own face reflected in Amanda's features, the same eyes, the shape of her nose, the line of her chin. Can I hug you?" Amanda asked, her voice trembling. Jennifer nodded and found herself wrapped in the arms of a woman who smelled like cinnamon and flour. Amanda wept silently, stroking the hair of the daughter she hadn't seen in 25 years. "I always knew this day would come," said Amanda between sobs. "I always knew you'd come back home." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. "Why did you never try to find me?" asked Jennifer, also emotional. "I did try, my daughter. I tried many times. But Susan always said it would be better for you if I kept my distance, that you were happy and my presence would only cause confusion. You believe that? Amanda stepped back slightly to look into her daughter's eyes. I was so young and scared. Susan seemed so sure of what she was doing. She had resources I could never offer. I thought maybe she was right, that you'd have a better life away from me. But you stayed living here all these years. I couldn't leave. I knew one day you'd come back looking for your roots. I wanted to be here when that day came. The bakery owner, noticing the emotional moment, discreetly turned the door sign to closed and retreated to the back, giving mother and daughter privacy. Amanda, can you tell me how it all happened? Why did you leave me with Martha? Amanda sighed and sat at one of the bakery tables, motioning for Jennifer to join her. I was 17 when you were born. Your father was a boy from school who disappeared when he found out about the pregnancy. My parents were furious. They kicked me out. I had nowhere to live, no job, nothing. And Martha? Mrs. Martha was known in town for helping struggling mothers. She did beautiful work, caring for children while their mothers got back on their feet. The plan was for you to stay with her a few months until I found work and a place to live. But that didn't happen. It did. After a year, I had a job at the old textile factory and rented a tiny studio. I was ready to take you back. What changed? Amanda hesitated, as if the next words were hard to say. Susan showed up. She introduced herself as a distant cousin of your father's and said she'd recently married a successful man. She offered to adopt you, promised private school, health insurance, a life I could never give you. And you agreed? At first I refused. You were my daughter. I'd prepared to raise you, but Susan was so persuasive. She showed documents proving her finances, talked about her plans for your education, said I could visit whenever I wanted. Did that happen? No. As soon as the adoption was final, Susan moved to Ridgewood and made it clear visits weren't welcome. When I tried to challenge it legally, she claimed any interference from me would harm your development. Jennifer felt anger rising in her chest. Susan had manipulated a vulnerable young mother, promising things she never delivered. Had you ever met Susan before that? I'd never seen her in my life. She appeared out of nowhere, saying she'd learned about you through your father's family connections. Amanda, I need to tell you something. I found records at the courthouse showing Martha left me the house I lived in with her. Susan knew and hid it from me for nearly 10 years. Amanda turned pale. Mrs. Martha left you the house? That makes so much sense. She always said you were the granddaughter she never had. Did you stay in touch with Martha after I left? I did. I visited her at least once a month. We'd talk about you, share how much we missed you. She showed me all the little letters she wrote you every birthday. She wrote me letters. Hundreds of them. All the important dates. Birthdays, Christmas, Children's Day. She wrote as if you would read them one day. Kept everything in a special box. Where is that box? It must still be in the house. Mrs. Martha told me she left instructions for everything to be preserved until you came back. Jennifer remembered the attic. She'd only searched a small part. There were probably many more secrets hidden in that house. Amanda, would you like to go to the house with me? Would you help me look for that box? You'd let me do that, of course, would let. You're my mother. Martha took care of me, but you gave me life. Amanda started crying again. Jennifer, you can't imagine how many times I dreamed of this moment, how many times I imagined what our reunion would be like. And how did you imagine it? I always thought you'd be angry with me for giving you up for adoption. I never thought you'd understand the circumstances. I'm starting to see that you were also a victim of the situation. Susan manipulated everyone, you, Martha, and me. They walked together to Magnolia Avenue talking about the lost years. Amanda spoke about her work at the town bakery, how she never married because she couldn't stop thinking about the daughter she had lost. Jennifer talked about her nursing degree, about Susan, about life in Ridgewood. When they reached the house, Jennifer showed her the preserved room, the photos she had found, Martha's letters. Amanda cried when she saw how the old woman had kept the memory of her adoptive daughter alive. She loved you so much, Amanda said, gently touching the items in the room. She always told me you were the most beautiful gift life had given her. Together, They searched the attic for the box of letters Martha had left. They found it hidden behind an old trunk, well preserved and labeled, "For Jennifer when you come home." Inside the box, hundreds of letters organized by date. Jennifer opened a few and read aloud. "My dear Jennifer, today you would have turned 10. I planted red roses in the garden, your favorite. When you return, they'll be beautiful waiting for you. Jennifer, my beloved granddaughter, I just saw a girl on the street who looked like you. My heart leaped with joy for a second, thinking you had come back." Each letter was a piece of Martha's heart, carefully saved for the day Jennifer returned. At the bottom of the box, they found a larger, heavier envelope. Inside were the house documents, a final letter from Martha, and a photograph Jennifer recognized immediately. It was her, Martha, and Amanda together in the house's garden when Jennifer was about 3. "Look," Amanda whispered, touching the photo tenderly. "We were a family." Martha's final letter was addressed to both Jennifer and Amanda. "My dear daughters of the heart, if you're reading this, it means Jennifer has finally come home and you've reunited. I have no words to express the joy I feel just imagining this moment. Jennifer, my beloved granddaughter, you were the greatest joy of my later years. Every day I spent with you was a gift from God. I hold no grudges against anyone for taking you. I know Susan believed she was doing what was best for you, but I always knew you'd return one day to discover your roots. Amanda, my dear daughter, you were a courageous mother who made an impossible decision for your daughter's well-being. Never blame yourself for that. The love you have for Jennifer has always been clear, and I'm certain she'll understand your choices. This house belongs to both of you now. Make it a home full of love and laughter again. Plant flowers in the garden, bake cakes in the kitchen, create new happy memories to replace the years apart. The 3 of you are the most important women in my life. Martha, Amanda, and Jennifer, 3 generations united by love, separated by circumstances, but destined to reunite. With all my eternal love, Grandma Martha." Mother and daughter wept in each other's arms in the dusty attic, surrounded by remnants of a family torn apart by pride, manipulation, and misunderstandings, yet finally finding their way back together. "What do we do now?" Amanda asked. "I don't know yet," Jennifer replied, "but I know I don't want to live based on Susan's lies anymore. I want to know my real story, to build a real relationship with you." "And Susan? Will you confront her?" "I will. She owes me answers about so many things. But first I need to understand everything that happened. I want to know more about my father, how Susan found out about me, the legal details of the adoption." They went downstairs to the kitchen, and Amanda made coffee as if it were the most natural thing in the world to do so in the house where her daughter had spent her earliest years. "Jennifer, can I tell you about your father? Please tell me. Susan always said she knew nothing about him. Your father's name was Brian Wilson. He was a year older than me and we went to the same school. He was very charismatic, popular, played on the school's soccer team. And when he found out about the pregnancy, he was terrified. His family had plans for him to study engineering in the city. When I told him, he said he was too young to be a father and that I should take care of the situation." "Did he ever meet you?" "No. Brian moved to New York City before you were even born. I heard he married a few years later and has other children now. Do you know where he is now?" "I know he works at an engineering firm in New York, but I never tried to contact him. I thought it was better to leave the past alone." "Did his family know about me?" "His parents knew about the pregnancy but pretended nothing had happened. It was through the Wilson family's connections that Susan found out about you." Jennifer processed all this, piecing together the puzzle of her origins. Susan had learned about her through her biological father's family and taken advantage of a vulnerable teenage mother to get the child she'd always wanted. "Amanda, do you think Susan planned this from the start?" "I always suspected she did. She showed up very prepared, documents ready, arguments convincing. It didn't seem spontaneous." "And you never questioned her motives?" "Back then, I was too young and desperate. Susan offered everything I couldn't. Financial stability, education, a structured family. I thought it would be selfish to deny you those opportunities. But you had the right to stay in contact with me." "I did. and I should have fought harder for that right. But Susan was intimidating. She had lawyers, resources, knowledge I didn't. I felt small against all of it. Jennifer's phone rang. It was Susan again. "Jennifer, where are you? I'm worried. You didn't come home last night." "I'm still in Woodbridge, and I've learned some very interesting things." "What kind of things?" "I found out you personally knew both Martha and Amanda, that you intercepted the will notifications leaving me this house, that my birth mother has always lived here and never tried to find me because you intimidated her." A long silence on the other end. "Jennifer, things aren't as simple as they seem. There's context you don't understand." "Then explain the context. Come here and let's talk. All three of us, you, me, and Amanda." "Amanda is there with you?" "Yes, she is. My birth mother is here with me, in the house my adoptive grandmother left me, figuring out together how our family was torn apart by your manipulations." "Jennifer, you're being very unfair. Everything I did was for your well-being. If you truly did everything with me in mind, you shouldn't have a problem coming here to explain your decisions in person." "Fine. I'll be there in 2 hours." Jennifer hung up the phone and looked at Amanda. "She's coming. I think we're finally going to have the conversation that should have happened 25 years ago." "I'm nervous," Amanda admitted. "Susan always made me feel small and inadequate. Not today. Today, we're two grown women demanding answers about decisions that changed our lives forever." As they waited for Susan to arrive, Jennifer and Amanda continued exploring the house. They found more photo albums, baby clothes carefully stored away, toys lovingly preserved. Each item told the story of a deep love that had been abruptly cut short. "You know what hurts the most?" Jennifer said, flipping through an album. "Realizing that Grandma Martha left thinking I had forgotten her, that I didn't care about the love she gave me." "She didn't think that," Amanda reassured her. "Martha always said you'd come back when the time was right. She had unshakable faith in the love you shared. I should have come back sooner. I should have questioned Susan more about my past. Don't blame yourself, my dear. Susan is very convincing when she wants to be. She convinced me to give you up, didn't she? And I was your birth mother." Exactly 2 hours later, Susan arrived at the house. Jennifer opened the door and saw the woman who had raised her as a mother standing on the porch, her expression tense, her eyes red, as if she'd been crying the whole way there. Susan was 58, her grey hair neatly styled, wearing expensive clothes that had always been her trademark. But at that moment, she looked fragile and unsure, nothing like the confident woman Jennifer knew. "Hi, sweetheart," Susan said softly. "Hi, Susan, come in. Amanda's in the kitchen." Susan hesitated at the door, as if crossing that threshold meant passing a point of no return. When she finally stepped inside, her eyes swept over every detail of the house with obvious familiarity. "You know this house well," Jennifer observed. "I do. I came here many times during the adoption process." In the kitchen, Amanda was making more coffee. When she saw Susan, her body visibly stiffened, but she remained polite. "Susan, Amanda, are you well?" "I am. And you?" "Fine, thank you." The tension in the air was palpable. Jennifer sat at the table and gestured for the other two women to do the same. "Now let's talk as three adults about decisions made 25 years ago that affected all our lives." Susan took a deep breath before speaking. "Jennifer, I know you're angry with me, but you have to understand. I always acted with your best interests in mind." "Best according to whom? You never asked what I wanted. You never gave me a chance to know my own story. You were 5 years old. You weren't old enough to make that kind of decision. But you could have told me the truth when I grew up. You could have kept in touch with Martha and Amanda. You could have told me about the will." Susan looked down at her hands, avoiding the gazes of the other two women. "Things weren't that simple. There were complications." "What complications?" Amanda asked. "You promised I could visit her, but you never allowed it." "Amanda, you were young and unstable. I thought it would be better for Jennifer to have a clean break from the past and build a new life." "Unstable?" Amanda stood up from her chair. "I had a job, a home. I was building a life for my daughter. What was unstable about that? You were single, earning little, no higher education, And that made me less of a mother, less capable of loving my child? Susan fell silent for a few seconds. It wasn't about love, Amanda. It was about opportunities. Jennifer graduated as a nurse, has a stable life, opportunities you could never have provided. But at what cost? Jennifer intervened. I grew up not knowing where I came from, not knowing my real family, not knowing a woman loved me unconditionally and died waiting for me to return. You were loved. I loved you as if you were my biological daughter. I know that, Susan, and I'm grateful for everything you did for me. But that doesn't justify the lies, the manipulations, the complete severance from my roots. Susan began to cry. I tried to have children for 10 years, Jennifer. I went through every possible treatment, suffered terrible losses. When I learned of your existence, I saw a chance to finally be a mother. And you decided your desires were more important than the bonds I'd already formed. You were little, I thought you'd adjust quickly. I didn't imagine the bond with Martha was so strong. But you saw how she suffered when you took me, didn't you? Susan nodded, crying harder. I did. That was the hardest part of the whole process. Martha begged to stay in touch, promised not to interfere with your upbringing if she could just see you sometimes. And you refused. I thought it would be more confusing for you to have two mother figures. I believed a clean break would be less traumatic in the long run. Amanda sat down again, tears in her eyes. Susan, you promised me Jennifer would know about me when she was older. Said you'd explain that I loved her but thought it best she be raised by you. I meant to tell her, but the longer time passed, the harder it got. Jennifer was happy, adjusted, building a new life. I didn't want to dredge up the past and confuse her. Or you didn't want to share your daughter with anyone, Jennifer said harshly. Susan looked at her with watery eyes. Maybe you're right. Maybe part of me was afraid that if you knew the truth, you'd choose to go back to your biological family. And if I had chosen, wouldn't that have been my right? It would, but I couldn't take that risk. You were everything I'd ever wanted, Jennifer. The chance to be a mother that life had finally given me. Even if it meant destroying other families in the process. Susan didn't answer immediately. The heavy silence in the kitchen was broken only by the ticking of the old clock on the wall. You're right to be angry with me, she finally said. I made terrible mistakes. I let my desire to be a mother cloud my judgment about what was truly best for Jennifer. And the will notifications? Jennifer asked. How do you explain intercepting mail that was legally mine? Susan sighed heavily. When the first letters from the courthouse about Martha's will arrived, I panicked. I knew if you learned about the inheritance, you'd do exactly what you're doing now. Come back here and uncover the whole truth. So you simply hid from me that I owned a house. I thought if I ignored the situation, it would resolve itself. The house would be sold and the money would stay with the courts. You'd never know. Until the house went up for sale and I, by coincidence, became interested in it. That was an irony of fate I never imagined could happen. Amanda, who had stayed quiet listening to the conversation, finally spoke. Susan, do you understand your decisions cost me 25 years of my daughter's life? I missed her childhood, adolescence, graduation, every important moment. I understand and I'm sorry for that. But Amanda, you also need to understand I gave Jennifer an education that completely changed her life. She has opportunities she never would have had if she'd stayed here. But did those opportunities justify tearing a family apart? Asked Jennifer. At the time I thought so. Today I'm not so sure anymore. Susan, said Jennifer, trying to keep her voice calm. I need to know the whole truth. How did you find out about me? How did you know where to find me? Susan hesitated again. It was through your biological father's family. I knew Brian's mother by sight. We'd occasionally run into each other at social events in Ridgewood. On one of those occasions, she mentioned the existence of a granddaughter her son had had very young. And you decided you wanted that child. It wasn't that calculated. At first I was just curious. But when I found out you were living with a temporary caregiver and that your biological mother was very young, I saw an opportunity. An opportunity to get a baby, said Amanda bitterly. An opportunity to help a child who could have a better future, Susan corrected. To help or to satisfy your own desire to be a mother, Jennifer questioned. Susan stayed silent for a long moment. Probably both, she finally admitted. Jennifer, I loved you from the first moment I saw you. I may have come to you for selfish reasons, but the love I felt was always genuine. I know that, Jennifer said more softly, and I'm grateful for the love and opportunities you gave me. But Susan, real love shouldn't include lies and manipulation. You're right. I made terrible mistakes, driven by fear of losing you. And now? Asked Amanda. What happens now? The three women looked at each other, each processing decades of secrets, lies, pain, and misdirected love. Now I said, Jennifer, we need to decide how to move forward. I can't change the past, I can't bring Grandma Martha back, I can't recover the lost years, but I can choose how to build the future. What do you want to do? Susan asked in a small voice. I want to know more about my true story. I want to build an honest relationship with Amanda. I want to honor Martha's memory. And I want to decide what to do with this house she left me. What about us? Asked Susan. About our relationship. Jennifer looked at the woman who had raised her, seeing in her both the loving mother she knew and the manipulator she had discovered. That will depend on your willingness to accept the truth and build something new based on honesty. I can't pretend none of this happened, but I also can't deny that you were my mother for 25 years. Can you forgive me? I can try. But forgiveness is a process, Susan. It will take time for me to process all this and decide how I feel about you and your choices. Amanda stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the garden where she had played with her young daughter decades ago. Jennifer, she said without turning around, I don't want you to feel pressured to have a relationship with me just because you found out I'm your biological mother. I understand that Susan raised you, that she's your real mother in many ways. Amanda, look at me. Amanda turned, tears in her eyes. You gave me life. Martha gave me unconditional love in my early years. Susan gave me education and opportunities. All three of you were important in making me who I am today. I don't have to choose one mother. I can honor the love from all of you. And what do you mean? I can build a new relationship with you based on who we are today. I can honor Martha's memory by caring for the house and garden she loved so much. And I can try to rebuild my relationship with Susan based on truth, not lies. Susan rose from her chair. Jennifer, does that mean you can forgive me? It means I'll try, but you need to understand things can't go back to how they were before. You need to accept that Amanda is part of my life now, that this house is part of my story, that the memory of Martha is important to me. I accept all of that. I just don't want to lose you. You won't lose me, but our relationship needs to be rebuilt on a stronger foundation. Amanda moved closer to Jennifer. What about us? About our relationship? I want to get to know you better. I want to learn about your life, your dreams, your struggles. I want to build a friendship that could grow into a real mother-daughter bond over time. Would you like to spend some time here in Woodbridge so we can get to know each other better? Jennifer looked around the kitchen where she had likely eaten breakfast as a child, where Martha had prepared countless meals thinking of her. I'd love that. In fact, I was thinking of moving here permanently. Really? Asked Susan and Amanda at the same time. This house is my inheritance from Martha. This town is where I was born, where I have roots I never knew about. Woodbridge has a hospital where I can work as a nurse. Why not start fresh here? Susan turned pale. Does that mean you're leaving Ridgewood for good? Not forever. Ridgewood is part of my story too, but I feel I need to spend time here, understanding where I come from, building relationships with my birth family. What about me? Can I come visit you? Of course you can. Susan, you're still my mother, no matter how this all began, but our relationship needs total honesty from now on. I promise. I swear I'll never hide anything from you again. And you, Amanda, Jennifer said, turning to her birth mother, would you help me restore this house, make it a home again? It would be an honor, Amanda replied, smiling through tears. Then it's settled. I'll finish my work contract in Ridgewood, arrange my move, and come home. Home, Amanda whispered. I like the sound of that. The three women spent the rest of the afternoon walking through the house, planning renovations, talking about the past and making plans for the future. Surprisingly, Susan offered to help financially with the repairs. "It's the least I can do," she said. "I want to help make this house a happy home again." "You don't have to feel obligated," Jennifer said. "It's not obligation, it's what I want. I'd like to be part of this new chapter in your life, if you'll let me." As the sun began to set, they sat in the garden where Martha had planted the roses she mentioned in her letters. The flowers were beautiful, well tended by a neighbor who had cared for the garden after Martha's passing. "You know what I'll do first when I move here?" Jennifer said. "What?" asked Susan and Amanda. "I'll throw a party to thank all the neighbors who looked after this house and Martha's memory all these years. I want this house to be a gathering place for the community again, like it was when I was little." "Martha would be so happy to hear that," Amanda said, "and I want to turn the attic into a small memorial for her, with all the photos, letters and keepsakes she saved, so her memory lives on forever." "That's a beautiful idea," Susan agreed. "Can I help with that too?" "Of course. In fact, I think Martha would love knowing we're all working together to honor her." When night fell, Susan prepared to return to Ridgewood. "Jennifer, thank you for giving me a second chance," she said, hugging her adoptive daughter. "Thank you for raising me with love, even if the circumstances were complicated at first. Can I call you tomorrow?" "Please do. And Susan, I love you. That hasn't changed, even after everything I've learned. I love you too, my dear. I've always loved." After Susan passed, Jennifer and Amanda were alone in the house for the first time. "How do you feel?" asked Amanda. "Confused, emotional, sad, happy." "All at once," Jennifer replied. "And you?" "Like I'm dreaming. For 25 years I imagined this moment. Now that it's happening, I can hardly believe it." "Amanda, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Did you ever regret giving me up for adoption?" Amanda thought carefully before answering. "I regretted many times not fighting harder to keep you with me, but I never regretted wanting what was best for you. Susan, despite all her mistakes, gave you opportunities I truly couldn't provide at the time. But you were still my mother. I am your mother. I always have been, even from afar. A mother's love doesn't fade, no matter the circumstances. I want you to know I'll try to be the daughter you always deserved to have close. Jennifer, you're already perfect as you are. You don't need to try to be anything but yourself." They slept in the house that night, Jennifer in the room Grandma Martha had preserved, and Amanda in the guest room. It was the first time in 25 years that mother and daughter slept under the same roof. In the following days, Jennifer organized her life for the move. She resigned from the hospital in Ridgewood, sold furniture she wouldn't need in the new house, and began reaching out to hospitals in Woodbridge. Susan kept her promise of complete honesty. She called every day, shared details about the adoption process she'd never revealed before, and even helped Jennifer search for information about her biological father. "I found Richard's address in New York City," Susan said during one call. "If you want to try contacting him, I can give you the information." "You'd do that, even knowing it means stirring up more of the past?" "I promised full transparency. Besides, you have the right to know your complete story." Amanda also worked hard to rebuild her relationship with her daughter. She shared stories about the pregnancy, Jennifer's early years, and the dreams she'd had for their future. "I imagined we'd be very close," Amanda said one afternoon as they sorted the attic. "I thought you'd tell me about your boyfriends, that I'd teach you to cook, that you'd give me grandchildren to spoil." "We can still have all that," Jennifer said. "Maybe not in the traditional way, but we can build our own version of family." "Do you really believe that?" "I do. Look at us now. We're here, working together, getting to know each other. It's not what we dreamed, but it's real. And it's ours." The house renovation took 3 months. Susan visited every weekend, helping financially and with manual labor. At first it was strange having both mothers working side by side, but gradually they developed a cordial relationship. "You know, Amanda," Susan said one day as they painted the guest room, "I always felt guilty for taking Jennifer from you." And I always resented you for it, Amanda answered honestly. But seeing Jennifer now, the woman she's become, I understand you truly loved and cared for her. And I understand now that your motherly love was as real as mine. Maybe we could have found a way to share that love instead of competing for it. Maybe. But we can't change the past. We can only try to do better moving forward. I agree. And I want you to know I don't see you as a threat. There's room in Jennifer's heart for both of us. It was an important moment of reconciliation between the two women who had loved the same child in different ways. When the house was finally ready, Jennifer threw the party she'd promised. She invited all the neighbors, Deborah's co-workers, some friends from Ridgewood, and even Deborah, the realtor who had run away on the first day. "Deborah," Jennifer said when the realtor arrived at the party, "why were you so nervous when you saw my photo?" "Because I knew the story of the house," Deborah explained. "I knew Martha had left the property to a granddaughter who was never found. When I saw that photo and realized you were the Jennifer mentioned in the will, I understood you'd uncover the whole truth." "Did you know Susan before I showed interest in the house?" "Yes, I did. She came to me a few months before you appeared, asking about the status of the house. She wanted to be notified if anyone was interested in buying it." "And you didn't find that strange?" "I did, but I thought she was just a family acquaintance. I never imagined she was the adoptive mother of the heiress we couldn't locate." Another piece of the puzzle fell into place. Susan had been monitoring the house, likely fearing Jennifer would someday discover the inheritance. The party was a success. Dorothy, the neighbor who had provided the first clues about Jennifer's past, cried with emotion, seeing the house full of life and laughter again. "Grandma Martha would be so happy," she told Jennifer. "She always said this house was meant to be a home full of love." "And it will stay that way," Jennifer promised. "I want this to be an open house where neighbors always feel welcome." During the party, Jennifer gave an emotional speech. "I want to thank all of you who cared for this house and preserved Martha's memory all these years while I was away. You kept her love for me alive, and that allowed me to come home and discover my true roots. I also want to thank the two courageous women here today, Amanda, who gave me life and made the hardest sacrifice a mother can make, thinking of my well-being, and Susan, who raised me with love and gave me opportunities to grow and be educated. We've all made mistakes, kept secrets, hurt each other. But today, we're here, brought together by love and the determination to build something better for the future. This house isn't just mine. It belongs to all of us who've chosen to form a family based on love, forgiveness, and honesty." The guests applauded, moved. It was a moment of collective healing for a community that had witnessed a painful family separation and now celebrated its reunion. After the party, when only Jennifer, Amanda, and Susan remained in the house, they sat in the living room, which had been completely renovated but still held its original charm. "How do you feel now?" Jennifer asked. "Like I can finally breathe freely," Amanda said. "For 25 years I carried guilt and longing. Now I can say I have my daughter back." "And I," Susan added, "feel relieved I no longer have to keep secrets. It was a terrible weight all these years, knowing I'd kept you from your true history." "And I feel whole," Jennifer said. "Like I finally know who I really am, where I come from, and my place in the world." "So," Susan asked, "what happens now? What will our family dynamic look like moving forward?" "I think we'll figure it out together," Jennifer replied. "There's no manual for this kind of situation. We'll have to create our own way of being a family." "An unconventional family," Amanda observed. "But a real one," Susan added. "The family we choose to create," Jennifer agreed. In the months that followed, the three women developed a routine that worked for all of them. Amanda visited Jennifer several times a week, sometimes staying for dinner or helping with small projects around the house. Susan would come for weekends, establishing a friendly relationship with Amanda and learning to share Jennifer's love. Jennifer got a job at the municipal hospital in Woodbridge and discovered she loved working in the town where she was born. She met new colleagues, made friends, and started dating a kind doctor who respected her complicated history. "Did you tell him about your family situation?" Susan asked one day. I did. It was freeing to be completely honest from the start of a relationship. I don't want relationships built on half-truths anymore. And he understood. He understood and respected it. He said every family has its complexities, and what matters is the love we have for each other. Amanda flourished with her daughter back in her life. She started studying to finish high school, something she had never managed to do when she was younger. Jennifer helped her with her studies, finally creating the close bond they had both missed. "Mom," Jennifer said one day. It was the first time she had called Amanda Mom. "I'm proud of you for studying." "I want you to be proud of me," Amanda replied, emotional. "I want to be the mother you deserve." "You already are." Susan also went through important changes. She started therapy to deal with her guilt over past mistakes and to learn how to have more honest relationships. She and her husband even began considering adoption again, this time through official and transparent channels. "I've learned so much from all this," Susan told Jennifer, "about honesty, about respecting existing family bonds, about how true love must include transparency." "And I've learned about forgiveness," Jennifer replied, "about how it's possible to forgive someone without forgetting what happened, about how to build something new from the ruins of what was broken." A year after discovering the photo in the attic, Jennifer organized a second gathering at the house, this time to commemorate the anniversary of Martha's passing. She invited the whole community to an event, celebrating the life and legacy of the woman who had been at the center of this story. Mrs. Martha never imagined her death would be the catalyst to reunite a family that had been separated. Dorothy said during the celebration, "But I'm sure she's happy knowing you found each other." Jennifer had created the memorial in the attic as promised, with all of Martha's photos, letters, and keepsakes carefully arranged. It had become a place of reflection and gratitude, where any family member or friend could go to connect with the memory of the woman who had touched so many lives. During the celebration, Jennifer gave another speech. "A year ago, I climbed those stairs as a stranger in this house, just looking for a place to live. I discovered this wasn't just any place. It was my home, my history, my family." Martha planted seeds of love that kept growing even after she was gone. The love she had for me connected me to Amanda, forced Susan to confront her choices, and brought together a community that had never forgotten our story. Today, I promise to keep honoring her legacy by making this house a place of love, forgiveness, and second chances. I promise the lessons I've learned about family, honesty, and forgiveness will be passed on to future generations. And I promise I'll never let secrets and lies destroy family bonds again. The truth may hurt, but it also frees and heals. As the guests celebrated in the garden, Jennifer went alone to the attic where it had all begun. She held the yellowed photo she'd found a year earlier, her and Martha embracing on the house's porch. "Thank you, Grandma," she whispered to the photo. "Thank you for waiting for me, for preserving our story, for teaching me that true love never dies. It just waits for the right moment to bloom again." She went down to join her two mothers and the friends who were now part of her chosen family. The house was once again full of life, laughter, and love, exactly as Martha had always dreamed. The end of the story. Now tell me, what did you think of this story of reunion and forgiveness? Were you moved by Jennifer's journey to discover her true origins? Share in the comments which part touched you the most, and whether you also believe it's possible to rebuild family bonds even after years of separation. Your opinion means so much to us. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories like this one.